On Thursday, there is the Kansas Infrastructure Summit that's being held at the Eugene Hughes Metropolitan Complex. It will be kicked off by the governor and then provide briefings on various infrastructure-type projects and how to apply for the funding. That's hopefully so we can get a portion of the $3.8 billion that have been allocated to Kansas under the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And I'll stand for any questions, Mayor.
Ben?
Yeah, I don't have any questions specifically, but I do want to echo what you said concerning the Community Relations Board and the 4th of July Committee, and tell them thank you for their work on that, and then also for all the citizens that came out and made it a successful and fun time there, even though it was rather hot on that day, but it was a great event.
Thank you. Brandy?
I just have a quick question. The project up at 61st in Jacksonville, I've
Yes.
noticed the cones are gone. Is that project essentially done now?
Essentially, just today is the day that they were doing the street markings, the heat appliques to the, but they still have to go through an inspection with our Public Works Department and everything, make certain that it is as expected. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
That looks very nice. Much better. Seeing no more questions, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Ben?
You had to go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Kyle?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Seeing no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, on to new business. Receive presentation on downtown district feasibility study.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. All right. So recently, the Center for Economic Development and Business Research at Wichita State University performed a feasibility study on the downtown development site for Park City. This analysis was based on, as you can see there, 3 radii, 2 miles, 5 miles, and 20 miles. So go ahead. In general, we are breaking down the impact of this development site and the effect it's going to have on Park City into 3 phases. First is the response phase, which is going to be the immediate term after its development, which is should be focused on addressing existing market conditions and catering to the current population's tastes and preferences. This is going to return money back into the community and stimulate a base of market engagement that is going to kick us into the growth phase. This growth phase is going to be occurring over about 1 to 2 years probably, where the new residents are being drawn into the area from local and other markets who are more attracted to the sort of downtown areas that are being developed here. In the long term, 3 years plus, this will create a large expansion of housing and retail demand. This will lead to a resident demographic shift and establish what we're trying to achieve with the new identity for Park City itself. So to understand the impact this is going to have, we first need to understand the market as it currently exists. The population within Park City is predominantly segment 4C called Middleburg, which is semi-rural locales in metropolitan areas. These individuals are typically from a rural origin and have typically lower than average diversity, primarily white males and females. They're likely to have, they're younger couples, typically married, and have young children, typically in the household. These individuals are predominantly strong in their faith, value family in their country, and have a taste for American-made goods and are willing to pay a higher price for it. They have a strong demand for family-related goods because of the fact that these people typically own their homes, and they also have children in the household, and so home furnishings establishments, children's toys and apparel are very popular kinds of retail. They enjoy hunting, fishing, baseball, and football, and bowling predominantly, and have a strong taste for outdoor activities. They are typically strong in their electronics consumption, and so they value sit-down restaurants and attending theme parks. Go ahead. This is different from the segment of the population that is likely to be attracted to this downtown development site, which are typically older, middle-aged couples without children in the household. They're usually have professional occupations with higher than average income. about the same kind of diversity seen in other, in the existing population. However, they typically consume a wider array of computer and IT services, are higher educated, like to live in apartments due to not having children in the household, or row houses. Both of those are proposed as components of this development site, and those are well chosen. They have a strong taste for the arts, theater, concerts, and museums, and enjoy libraries and reading. And so those components of the development site are similarly well chosen. Go ahead. It's a little small, but essentially the gist of this is kinds of sort of institutions that have a retail gap, shown in red on the left side, are what we want to avoid bringing into the area to avoid conflict with what we are already specialized in Park City. Where we have gaps that are likely institutions that we can bring in to meet existing market demand are shown on the right, where there are retail leakages. Those strong positive numbers where we see furniture and home furnishing stores, food and beverage stores, health and personal care stores, clothing, sporting goods, and general merchandise, those are the kinds of commercial spaces that you would be wanting to bring into the area. A literal interpretation of these numbers is essentially the fraction of the population within those radii that travel outside of it to consume those, to purchase those kinds of goods. So this is indicating a gap in the availability of those kinds of goods in Park City. Questions at this point?
Does those numbers also take into consideration our location in relation to the interstate?
So the data, I guess I should clarify, in what manner do you think that the interstate would have? These numbers are backwards looking. This is just based on available data. So if the interstate is assumed to have an effect, it would be reflected in the data itself.
And my example, I'd say with that would be gasoline stations.
Yes, so gas stations, they're on there. What we have in Park City is a whole lot of concentration in things like shipping, logistics, warehousing, trucking, motor vehicle parts, and gas stations are very complementary to that. We get a lot of traffic in Park City because due to those. And actually on that chart on the right, if you notice the number is negative for the 2 and 5 mile radii. What that means is that essentially we are attracting a whole lot of people from outside of those radii to gas stations within the area. If we were to hypothetically be bringing in more gas stations, we would only be further concentrating here.
Thank you.
So residential demand, as we alluded to before, the existing segment of the population predominantly owns their homes. The homes that are available in this area are typically of lower and middle value. You can see on the leftmost chart, that yellow bar, which is the fraction of the housing within the 2 mile radius that is made up of each of those income ranges. It's the same thing, the graph to the right of that in the center, we have rented domiciles, that's apartments and row houses. And then that top right chart, you can see that rightmost column, the home value to income ratio in the 2 mile radius is much lower than it is for the 5 mile radius, the 20 mile radius, the state as a whole, or the US. Taken together, this indicates that the housing market and the apartment market, rented domicile market, I should say, within this area can support higher value rent and higher value homes. So when we're thinking about what kind of apartments to fill this residential space with, we could be very well chosen to cater to that higher price point, which is also going to be supportive of the segment of the population that is most likely to be attracted to the area by the development site. Okay. We can skip that. So entertainment and sports are probably some of the most important things that we want to think about of like what are we supporting people's tastes and preferences in the area. So being in this first phase where we're primarily trying to cater, where we suggest at least catering to the current segment of the population who lives throughout the area, we're primarily going to want to be including activities or at least including commercial space that are supportive of purchases of equipment for boating, bowling, fishing, football, horseback riding, hunting, motorcycling. Those kinds of things are very popular with the population who lives here already. As I mentioned before, clothing and especially children's clothing and accessories are very highly valued in this area because the population are likely to have children in the household. And for that reason, they are attending college and high school sporting events at a higher than average rate. And so it would probably be supportive of that end if we had commercial space with clothing that is having to do with stuff for high schools, sporting, and college events. The pools and sports courts that are proposed for the development site are probably going to be very popular with the younger people who live here. And then as we see a demographic shift, we'll see a change in the utilization thereof. For entertainment venues, movie theaters are very popular, which is very much in line with what we would expect for this population. Country music performances are very popular. And art galleries, museums, and live theater as the kinds of things that are being proposed for the green space that is part of the development site. These are typically less popular with the current segment of the market. However, as the demographics shift over time with the newly attracted population to the development site, those will likely become very much more popular. Go ahead. And the last slide that we have today is talking about organic foods, which is our proxy for the popularity of the proposed farmers market. Now, this is a little bit less precise. There's not a whole lot of data on the utilization of farmers markets in an area where there's not a farmers market. However, what we can conclude is that because people who are consuming fresh fruits, vegetables, and have a propensity to purchase organic and natural foods, these are the people who would most likely be consuming from the farmers market. So with the current segment of the population that lives here, again, this is not very much within what they typically are strongly associated with. In survey responses, typically they responded more negatively than positively about whether or not they regularly consume organic foods, and only about a fifth of the population responded that they had purchased fresh fruits and vegetables within the last 6 months. However, there is optimism within the longer term as we see that demographic shift, because that newer segment of the population that's going to be moving in very much is has a stronger tendency to consume those kinds of things. So a quick summary of like how that relates to the study. The parties involved with putting together this study have clearly done their diligence. The things that they have been suggesting as components of it are very well suited to the population that is likely to be moving in. And we absolutely have the opportunity to fill commercial spaces with the kinds of retail and the kinds of services that are easily able to meet existing market gaps. So questions?
Jim?
Could you go back on the demographic sectors? You described, these were terms I hadn't heard before. Middleburg and traditional living
Yes.
and green acres and up and coming families and salt of the earth. There was a lot of terms in there. What are the other categories?
So these other categories, we should be transparent about where this originates from. The Center for Economic Development and Business Research uses essentially a service called ESRI. Now this ESRI service develops their own tools and measurement systems that allow them to kind of categorize areas by what their population is most strongly associated with. This map here on the left-hand side is showing color coordinated by the large silos of how you can categorize that population. So right in the center of that, you can see that little pink dot near the center where it is segment L4, family landscapes. A subset of that is that Middleburg group of the population, which the Middleburg group of the population, these are your individuals who have these characteristics. Now, we only really talk about them when it comes to establishing what are the predominant tastes and preferences and demands for the population here, because if you look at that table kind of in the middle, that makes up 60.4% of the population within this area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I understood what that was. I was just curious what the others were that we don't have here.
I mean,
What's salt of the earth? There's only 1.2% of them.
right, salt of the earth, that would be more strongly associated with the more rural settings. So you can see that it's labeled 6B on that table, and L6 on the map is cozy country. That's people in more typically rural and country settings.
Okay.
Within, within that 2-mile radius, that would probably be that westernmost corner. You can see it's that little green section there. That would probably be where those individuals reside, but it's a very small fraction of the population.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
I got another one. What was the data derived? You mentioned the service that used, that prepared the data.
Yes.
But, I mean, how do they gather that? Are they tracking sales?
Well,
in the
so,
Code, how does, what is it based on?
so the data comes from a number of different sources. Primarily, the population data originates from the American Community Survey. The ACS data from 2020 is what most of this is. There's also a data service called Data Axle, where we have data on every firm effectively in the country if we wanted it. But within this area, we're able to look at the sales, the employment of all firms, and how those businesses are categorized within, if you've heard of NAICS codes. Essentially, by their NAICS code, it classifies those businesses.
Well, I was just trying to think how they were tracking what we're purchasing.
So sales to, can you go to the retail? So sales to certain institutions would just show up as this number of dollars were purchased at an institution that is classified in one of these categories. Like, right, if you were to go to, let's say, a Home Depot and spend $100 there, it would add to the retail sales, the supply on this left-hand chart at building and supply. So it would just be based on the earnings reports and the reports filed by those businesses.
Guess I'm still not seeing the connection to how they know it was in, that our residences.
Each of those businesses have an address, right? And like that Data Axle is able to pull what the addresses for all of those businesses are.
Actions were? Those individual transactions?
It's not on the transaction side. It's not looking at actual consumers. It's looking at the businesses. What did they sell and for how much? It's a nuanced difference, but it's not looking at the consumers themselves. It's looking at the commercial spaces themselves.
Okay.
So the businesses have to file effectively what their earnings were in that period.
Okay.
Ben?
So if I understand that part correctly, what you're saying is like in this one, it says retail Gap 5-mile radius. So you're pulling all these types of businesses within a 5-mile radius
Correct.
and then pulling their earnings reports to come up with these numbers.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
it's not an individual tracking of how I use my debit or credit card. It's
Correct.
based upon the earnings of what businesses. Okay. Really, I guess I don't have anything specific to the presentation. It seems like what's been put forward, and I'm guessing a lot of this has to do with the initial consultation work in terms of what they had designed, and then what the group, I don't know what their official name is, if we want to give them a name or not, but.
Jeff can come up and brief and talk about that.
So, yeah, because my question really is, where do we go next?
Yep.
And if you have further questions after that, I'm happy to field that as well.
Thank you.
Council, Jeff Lang. Thank you all for having us take on your downtown project. We're excited about Park City, your opportunities here. As you can see, Jonathan and Jeremy, you maybe have seen Jeremy Hill on a lot of different TV comments when they have questions for folks. Jeremy seems to be the guy that the news reporters go to. Jonathan works closely there with Jeremy in that department, so we appreciate your investment in this research. As you can see, it's extremely valuable for us to put our energies all going the same direction. You as a council, we as a city, we as your developers here to take on this project and make things happen. So Ben, to answer your question here as to what our name is, I might introduce, just so you all know who's here in the room. I'm Jeff Lang with Lang Companies. We have Ryan here with the Lang Companies as well. We have Brad with Benish, and we have Joel with Hutton, and our gentleman here from Wildcat, which is also part of our team. Those 4 different companies have come together to create one team here to drive things for you all. He happened to get elected to another city council, and he's meeting tonight there to sit and take care of those duties. So we are the team that are driving things. You're going to see much more activity. I also want to thank you for your patience. These kinds of things, you want them to happen just right now, but we want to do it right first. You've seen projects that haven't been right. We want to do an excellent project for you. We're known for doing quality projects. Everybody on our team does quality projects. That's the way we want to approach this here for you all. This is something that will last for centuries and make a huge difference in your population and for your citizenry and your taxpayers. So it's really important that we approach this the right ways. And as you can see from Jonathan's report here, I also want to thank Hutton here for paying for Jonathan to make this presentation. You all agreed to pay for the report and the study. And then we felt like it was really important for you to have Jonathan here to talk to you, answer questions directly. And so Hutton covered the cost of that here to make that happen here today. So questions that you might have, Ben, you had some specific questions
Well,
there?
just
I
more
might
like,
answer.
what are, in your opinion, what are the next steps that you all
Next
are going to
steps
approach?
are to take the concepts from your taxpayers. They've all been a part of the poll that was created to kind of create a beginning map. This is what we'd like to see in a perfect world. And now we've got the economic information. So what we want to do next is bring those two together, and where do they intersect? From the preliminary studies that we've done on that, there's a lot of intersecting that's going really well. They seem to be really in line. There's very few things that are outliers that don't look like they're very promising. But we will be putting that together here, so again, we really get this focus of what is the right thing to be doing. And then we'll be working together with Sean here at each step of the way. Our groups now are going to be taking this and taking action. We're going to be working on exactly what those next steps are, what are the specific next steps that can happen the quickest, so that we can start seeing activity and get the momentum kind of started here on things.
Perfect. I do want to say, I appreciate the team that's been assembled for this. I think it's a great quality team, and I'm excited that you all have also partnered with Gardner. I think there's top-notch people putting this project together. I don't see anybody else lit up, so I would make a motion to go ahead and receive and file this, and if somebody wants more.
Okay, we have a motion, Tom?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. I gotta say, this is exciting, another very big step towards bringing this to fruition. I mean, I always hear, since I've lived in Park City for a little over 20 years, a lot of people say, well, where's downtown Park City? That's the bad thing about Park City is they don't have a downtown. And, you know, one thing better than an old downtown is a new downtown, and we're closer to that, so we're looking forward to it.
And you're out in front of a lot of other communities. It's not an unusual situation for a suburban community to not really have a core downtown. And so many folks don't think that way, so I really applaud you all to be thinking about, here's something that we could really do that's going to make a big impact for this city. So we appreciate that. Any other questions for myself? Anybody on our team? And again, thank you for supporting Gardner to join this team. We asked you all to help support that, and we think that's going to really make a big difference. So we appreciate the cooperation that you all have shown us here.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Move to item 8, discussion, consider an ordinance including and incorporating certain land within the limits and boundaries of the city of Park City. Sean.
Yes, sir. The city clerk has received a petition for annexation from the land from Lou and Deborah Rebelli, requesting the city annex approximately 21 acres of land located on the south side of 61st Street, west of the Wichita Flood Control Canal, pursuant to provisions of KSA 12-520. There's a full legal description in your packet. There is no physical impact at this time. In April, council approved an agreement with the city of Wichita that upon de-annexation of the property and its successful annexation into Park City, that Park City would pay Wichita on an annual basis 20% of the ad valorem taxes collected by the city on only the improvements to the property. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions to that? Sorry, Tom.
Well, I was going to say I don't have any questions, but I was going to go ahead and make a motion.
Go ahead.
We approve this. We've discussed it in the past. I move to approve ordinance 1148, 2022, an ordinance including and incorporating certain land within the limits and boundaries of the city of Park City, Kansas.
Jim?
I would second it for discussion, and the discussion only being to reiterate, there was a sunset on the sharing of the 20% of the taxes that wasn't mentioned
That's
tonight, but it's
part of it.
20 years?
It's 25, isn't it?
It's
Yes,
25.
25 years.
But remember, this is just the annexation. The agreement was separate on,
Yeah.
on
I
that
just thought
deed.
in our records, it ought to be consistent.
No,
Yes,
good.
sir.
Yeah.
Make sure that's reflected in the minutes. Very good. Ben?
That was my question too, is I didn't hear the clarification on time, so.
Excellent, and if you'll notice, Sean mentioned it, but this is on the improvement, so as it sits, if it doesn't get developed for 2 years, there's no payment due. It's only on improvements that happen in the future.
Excellent.
And for sorry, it's 25 years from the time we annex, not 25 years from the time of improvement, correct? Okay.
Right, so the clock is ticking.
And only on taxes collected.
Details. Okay, we have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Charlie Davidson, George Glover,
Aye.
Ben Sosetta,
Aye.
Kyle Nordick,
Aye.
Tom Jones,
Aye.
George Capps, Brandy Bailey,
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 9, discuss and consider the Sedgwick County Notice of Revenue Neutral Rate Intent Form for the 2023 budget process. D.
As you're all very aware by now, the revenue neutral rate, or the R&R, is the mill levy computed using the current estimated assessed valuation that exactly equals the amount of ad valorem taxes levied in the previous year. Entities that are planning to exceed the R&R must inform the county clerk by July 20th of their intent to do so, the proposed mill levy, and the date, time, and location of the tax rate hearing. Beginning this year, the county clerk will utilize the information that is submitted to notify taxpayers by mail or email of all the taxing subdivisions that are planning to exceed the R&R. The Sedgwick County Notice of Revenue Neutral Rate Intent Form, as it is currently completed and in your packets, reflects that the City of Park City intends to exceed the R&R for the 2023 budget, that the proposed mill levy is the same as last year's final mill levy, 44.534 mills, and that the tax rate hearing will be held in the City Administration Building at 7 p.m. on August 23rd, 2022.
Thank you, Dee. Ben?
Yeah, I want to thank Councilmember Nordick for the stress ball for this agenda item. I want to applaud our city for the work and growth over the last year that we've seen as it's played out, whether it's in Amazon development and new housing in 2021 with over 100 permits pulled and everything, which have helped increase our tax base so that we don't have to raise the mill levy, which we're not doing again for another year. We are required now, obviously, to go through this exercise of futility, but I appreciate all the work that's gone into that there. I would like to see us, though, maybe as a council, I've had a couple conversations with some of our state elected officials, and I think it would be maybe helpful as a legislative body ourselves to have some conversations with our elected officials concerning the intent of this legislation that's being brought forward that we're dealing with now, while well-intentioned in many ways, is not applicable and it's not helpful for effective government. So this is this is my stress ball answer to this, is maybe as a legislative body, we look at some ways to sit there and host some of our elected officials to see how we can fulfill the intent of the law without penalizing cities who are just actually doing a good job at growing. So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the notice of revenue neutral rate intent form and to authorize the finance director to submit the form to the Sedgwick County Clerk.
Jim? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 10, discuss and consider resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings. Paving improvements for Saddlebrook, 3rd edition. Sean?
Yes, sir. The next three items, the last three items for this evening all go together. They're all for Saddlebrook 3rd edition. It is for both paving, sanitary sewer, and the water distribution. First of all, for the paving side of it, the attached petition was filed with the city clerk proposing paving improvements to Saddlebrook 3rd edition. The petition was signed by the owners of records of more than one half of the area liable for the assessment for the proposed improvements, and therefore petitioners request such improvements be made without notice and hearing as required by KSA 12-6A01. The improvements include construction of pavement of Hidden Court and portions of Hidden Lane and Spruce Street, with drainage to be installed where necessary, along with mass grading to serve the area described as the improvement district, all prepared for and approved by the city engineer. The estimated or probable cost of the improvements is $776,000, with the estimated cost being increased on a pro rata basis of 1% per month from the date after the adoption of the resolution authorizing the improvements. The improvement district for the paving includes lots 1 through 6 and lot 8 of Block A, lots 1 through 17 Block B, and lots 1 through 7 Block C of Saddlebrook 3rd edition. The method of assessment is equally between all lots, with 100% going towards the improvement district and 0% towards the city. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Sean. George Glover?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 1122-2022, a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, subject to letter of credit, paving/Saddlebrook 3rd edition.
Thank you. Jim?
Second for discussion. Quick discussion. This is the street that's rocked right now, so this will complete the paving of Saddlebrook?
That is correct. This will complete the paving of the second entrance into Saddlebrook.
Yeah, the second, and is this the last area of Saddlebrook? Are they out of lots after this?
This, technically at this time, yes.
Yeah, that's a great thing that's going on with Saddlebrook. That's really filled in nicely and been a success, so.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Tom, did you?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 11, discuss, consider resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings. Sanitary sewer system for Saddlebrook 3rd edition. This will be the same area. Staff recommends approval. I would entertain a motion. Ben?
Yeah, just one real quick question on this. This is just a more housekeeping. Is there anything that permits us from tying these three together as far as one motion? Or is there a requirement that we separate all these three out?
There's a requirement to
ours.
separate each
Okay.
one of them.
So I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 1123-2022, a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, subject to letter of credit.
Thank you, Ben. We have a motion. Jim?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments, Jim?
Nope.
Okay, I'll say ditto. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 12, discuss and consider resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings. Water distribution in Saddlebrook, 3rd edition. Staff recommends approval. Ben,
I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 1124-2022, a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, subject to letter of credit.
okay? Jim?
I second also.
Seeing no further comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We added on to Charlie's neighborhood while he's not here. Okay, so we'll move to governing body reports. Jim?
Just a general comment that it was really nice seeing everybody at the 4th of July event. That was very well run and attended. I enjoyed that a lot, so it was good to see everybody. So that's all I have.
Brandy?
I have nothing tonight.
George?
I've got a couple of things. I was up at Sedgwick Saturday at the SAC meeting, and our mayor made an excellent explanation of current events here in Park City. And I would further predict that because of interactions with the mayor of Derby and our mayor, I predict that Derby is soon going to have a couple of pickleball courts. And that was a nice interaction, Mayor. And the other thing is, I don't know who, you see in the stores, you see merchandise that advertise in the city of Park City. Who sponsors that? Where does that come from?
Like over at the embroidery place?
Any place. You see at Leakers, I've seen sweaters and stuff with Park City on them. Who sponsors that stuff?
I believe it's actually a sewing embroidery place that has most of the stuff around on consignment. The 40th anniversary T-shirts was done by the CRB, Community Relations Board. But as far as other swag for Park City, I believe it's the embroidery place that does all that.
Well, I bring that up because during the meeting, Laura Rainwater was going around taking pictures of all of us with her cell phone, and her cell phone had the Wichita city flag on it. And I would like to, I don't know how we'd go about it, but I'd like to see some of these things manufactured because it's real interesting. If you want to brand your city, get it out there. You know, people put it on the back of their cell phones. Everybody's got a cell phone.
Yes, sir.
And you can really merchandise your city that way. And it just stood out when she was taking her picture of that Wichita flag looking right at us.
Yes, sir, and as I understand it, the mayor also volunteered, we're going to be hosting SCAC in March time period. So we'll be hosting him here.
Okay.
So put that on your calendars. It'd be great to have our entire council.
What was the date again?
March 11th.
Saturday, March 11th, 2023.
Second Saturday in the month.
They're very informative. Like I say, John gave an excellent critique of our current events. And he really, his interaction with the mayor from Derby was excellent. They will have pickleball courts. I'd almost bet on it.
I was gonna bring this in my report later, but at the end of the 4th of July parade, it ended at the McLean Park. And when we got to the park, our pickleball courts are all being used by a bunch of people that we didn't recognize, of course, but we went and made small talk with them. And we get to talking with them, and they're from Derby. They all came to Park City to play pickleball because they have no pickleball courts in Derby. So I had the opportunity to rub that into the mayor of Derby at this SCAC meeting. So I definitely took that opportunity.
It was very good.
I just, and I, with all due respect, Derby has a really good rec program. Their rec commission, I mean, they're phenomenal. I mean, they're well-known around the county and even surrounding counties for how, the great programs they have for kids and adults. So to me, it makes me pretty proud when I hear Derby folks coming up here to use our facilities. Tom?
I made a comment to John 2 months ago, I think it was, that it was nice to have a mayor back at the SCAC meetings. I think it had been about 10 years since we'd had a mayor attend. George and I and a few other people have gone over the past 10 years and held it up. The organization just about collapsed about 5 years ago, and it's been brought back, and so it's getting formidable again. So it's nice to see you there. That's all I got.
Kyle?
I don't have anything tonight.
Early voting starts tomorrow for the primary election, so make sure to go out and find your polling location and vote. If you want to know what my feelings are on it, you can drive by my house and see. But anyway, make sure you get out and vote here. This Saturday is, I'm doing my coffees and combos at Leakers, so come on by. Love to hear from you all there. Appreciate the budget conversations that we're having as we get closer to putting our 2023 budget here quickly. So thank you to staff for all the work that they put into that.
George?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Carol Flowers. There was some volunteer work that was done this past Saturday, and she participated in that. She had a group of residents that were with her and doing some work in a ditch area, and I saw it firsthand, and the growth, just everything that goes along with a ditch, and all the work that she put into that, and I wanted to thank her for that. Also this weekend, Saturday, the new mental health crisis number is 988. So that goes into effect this Saturday, I believe it's the 16th. So you can use that, start using that number. Thank you.
Good. Couple comments I have. Council members, we met tonight on additional discussion about the budget for coming year, and I just want to thank you guys. I know we took extra time out of your day away from your families and to come in and put this together, and I think we have a good plan to move forward with the budget, and thank you to staff too. I know they worked very hard on it, but and I already fast forward a little bit on some of the 4th of July celebration, but I also want to say a big thanks to Sean and Simon and Zach and all of their staff for their hard work getting our city facilities prepped for it's our 4th of July celebration, which is our big day of the year. I don't think there's a day of the year, maybe citywide garage sale day, but 4th of July brings the most people to our town in the entire year, and I feel like it's very important that we have all of our right-of-ways and easements and parks looking in tip-top shape, and I was really impressed. I thought they did a great job, and if you noticed in the week prior, or maybe even 2 weeks prior, they were going along 61st Street, and they're on hydraulic and trimming trees and making it just really look nice, so huge kudos to them. Thank you to David Oldham. We had kind of a last-minute snafu at the stage at the park for the band, and he came through for us and made a big project easy and making electricity come to light for the band. He really saved the day for us. Community Relations Board, several of you guys mentioned this already, but I just got to say, I really had a lot of comments there at the park from the public, from people from Park City and not from Park City that were really impressed with the organization of the events at the park. For many know that we start off with the parade that ends at the park, and as Sean mentioned, there was 28 entries this year in the parade. And then the car show had 84 entries, which was obviously bigger than the last, but I feel like we're really getting to this pre-COVID numbers of celebration again. Then after the parade's over, they have activities at the park for kids to play. We had the pet show there. There was a cornhole tournament that was organized by Park City Pride. We had a pickleball tournament that, as you guys know, it got completed basically days prior to the celebration. So we reached out to the Sedgwick County Fire Department, and they stepped up and handled the organization of the tournament and the brackets and putting everybody to play each other. So it went very smooth, and it was nice to have. We don't have our own hometown fire department, but it's really cool to me to see our firemen in our town spending a lot of time. And if you guys haven't seen, they've been at the senior center quite a bit, and they've also been at the park just about every night. So, and then ended up with the concert there at the park as well, was a fantastic concert. We made some adjustments in location, and I thought the location that we had this year was really good. And then it capped off with an incredible fireworks show. And I even had a voicemail from a citizen from Whitewater that was just astonished by how awesome our fireworks show was. So I think that's pretty cool. Also want to add that we do have some openings for a Community Relations Board. The CRB, Community Relations Board, meets monthly. They organize all of our special events in town throughout the year, including the Easter egg hunt, 4th of July celebration, Fall Festival, and our newest one is a Christmas tree lighting. If you remember, that was very well attended. So I think that's really neat. To me, that's very important that it kind of brings a town together, a town that is split by school districts and everything else in town, post office. These events is what brings people together. So if you guys know of anybody that may be interested in serving on the Community Relations Board, I would encourage you to have them get in touch with us. I did have one complaint, fireworks, on asking us to reduce the number of days that we allow fireworks in town. One of them asked that we maybe ought to look at like the Bel Air law that must be more restrictive. I have no idea what it is, but I just wanted to pass that along to the council. That I don't know if you guys got any complaints, but I got one. You know, and he mentioned the vets and pets, which is a good point because our veterans, it's a hard time for them throughout the 4th of July season. And same on pets. So that's all I have. Unless anybody has any questions, I would entertain. Oh, Brandy.
Might just have something to say, because he's not gonna say it himself, but at the pickleball tournament, our mayor was the champion of that tournament, and his team lost no games. So, I just wanna say congratulations, and thank you for representing our city and winning the whole event.
I had a really good partner, I gotta admit. But anyway, it was a good time, so really cool.
I was gonna make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
If unless somebody's got more to talk about.
Anybody want to debate that?
I was just gonna ask how the bacon eating contest went, since we're talking about mayoral
Sorry, I didn't get that in my notes here.
competitions.
So I lost the bacon eating contest. So I may have won pickleball, but I lost. I let you guys down on the bacon eating contest. And Mayor Lou Cicerello from Valley Center kicked my butt by 1 ounce. But I will say they put us all in the same pool. There were 3 or 4 other guys in between us that they gave you a pound of bacon and you have 2 minutes and they just time it. And I'm telling you, these guys had it down. There was 2 guys that ate the entire pound of bacon in 2 minutes. And that sounds really cool until you have to eat a pound of bacon in 2 minutes. Because really the best part of eating bacon is you can eat it slow. And I mean, they just mushed it all up and just put it in. And the sad thing is the second place guy, he ate all of his bacon, but he didn't win. So I'm pretty sure I felt better than he did when we left.
That was a graceful way to eat bacon.
Yeah, man, it was a neat event and very well attended. And as you guys know, Hartman Arena was very kind and gave us some extra tickets, and I invited our surrounding mayors, Valley Center and Keachai and Bel Air, and then Derby mayor was also in attendance. So.
And I will say, sorry, just back to what I was gonna actually mention, and I'm in support of what Tom's gonna say here, is just as far as the complaints go on that. I didn't receive any. I will say this, though, like, I know even 2 days after the 4th, that they were still firing them off in my neighborhood here in town. So while I agree that we could look at it, I don't know if it really makes a difference, because they're firing them off when it's not allowed already. So that's my only thought, is that if they're already doing it, we're not able to really enforce it. Doesn't really make that's not a criticism, that's just a personnel issue. We don't have personnel to sit there and wander down the streets, so.
Very good. All right, do I have a second on Tom's motion, or are we gonna die?
Yes, that's a second, yep.
All right, we have a motion by Tom and seconded by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.